YouTube page, and replay schedules on government TV can be found on oshkoshmedia.org. I am Margie Davey, President of the League and tonight's moderator. The League of Women Voters seeks to inform citizens about major public policy issues and about candidates seeking office. We never support nor oppose any political party or candidate. You can learn how to join at LWV.Winnebago.org or by asking any of our members here tonight. While the League of Women Voters doesn't support any person or party, we do support legislation which agrees with our principles and positions, and we don't support legislation which does not. No matter our race, background, or zip code, Wisconsinites know that voting is a fundamental right. However, a handful of politicians have put 2 constitutional amendments on our April 2nd ballot. They want to limit funding for our elections without any plan to make sure election administrators have the support and supplies they need to help voters make their voices heard. The League recommends a no vote on both. How long we must wait in lines to vote, how many polling locations are open, and the speed of results are all determined by how much money our state allocates to fund our elections. Vote no on Constitutional Amendment Question 1. Elections are a lot of work. Clerks rely on a whole host of outside experts, volunteers, and community members to make sure our elections run smoothly and the results are accurate. Question 2 would make the jobs of our election heroes even harder. Vote no on Constitutional Amendment Question 2. These constitutional amendments are both rooted in disinformation and a lack of consideration for voters and our hardworking local election administrators, which is why we recommend the no votes. The votes no. Yeah, that makes more sense. In addition to organizing forums like this, the local league also hosts monthly presentations that are timely and informative. Some of our upcoming speakers will deliver news on public education budgets and vouchers, discuss the Winnebago County Community Health Assessment and Improvement Plan. An attorney who handled the Fair Maps case will share, and we'll learn what Tri-County Dental actually does. The league holds voter outreach events to help people register to vote, request an absentee ballot, and find their polling place. We also provide information on current issues. We regularly partner with other nonpartisan organizations on events to expand our local reach, and we meet with school district and government officials to share ideas on how we can best serve our communities. How can you learn about what we're doing? The League publishes a monthly newsletter and has an active Facebook page. For more information about the League of Women Voters, go to our website, LWV.Winnebago.org. Early in-person absentee voting allows voters who cannot reach their polling place on Election Day to vote beforehand. In the city of Oshkosh, early voting for spring election, never mind, that was no, this is spring election. This is right, I'm sorry, thought I had the wrong script here. It's going to take place at 19 East Irving. This is a change from the previous location in City Hall from past years, so check with the Oshkosh City Clerk for early voting availability. I don't have the times for it right here. The League of Women Voters facilitates Vote411.org, an online candidate and voter resource where all candidates for all races are invited to answer questions. When you, the voter, put in your address, you learn which races will be on your ballot, which candidates are running for each office, and candidate responses to the questions. If there are no responses, that means the candidate chose not to participate. We encourage you to then reach out directly. Candidates are applying for a job, and every voter should know how they plan to do that job. We call this being an informed voter. You can also visit myvote.wi.gov to check your voting status and for more information. Please turn off your electronic devices, unless you're the timekeeper when you're allowed to keep it on. No audience recording is allowed. Tonight, 5 candidates are competing at large for 3 seats on the Oshkosh City Council for a 2-year term. They are Thomas Asuma, Jacob Flom, Chris Larson, DJ Nichols, and Christopher Ulrich. Incumbents Lindsay Erickson, Michael Ford, and Lakeisha Hayes are not seeking re-election. Joining me on the panel tonight is Karen Schneider, publisher of the Oshkosh Herald and Neenah News. Public questions were solicited in advance. Those of you in the audience may also submit questions on the cards provided. Just wave them in the air and a league member will come around and pick them up, or bring you a card if you need one. Questions must be for all candidates and may not single out a candidate. Questions may be edited for brevity and clarity, and while we hope to cover as many as we can, we may not have time for all. Candidates, please keep your answers concise so we may cover as many issues as possible. Our timekeeper, who I'm sure you've located in the front row, will give you clues. Please heed the stop sign so I don't have to cut you off, and I will. Concise answers will allow time for more questions. This is not a debate. You will each be given the same amount of time for each question. And with that, we will start with our opening statements. You now each have 2 minutes to summarize your background, qualifications, and your motivation for seeking election to the Oshkosh City Council. Why should voters choose you over your opponents? For this, we'll go alphabetically, so we'll begin with you, Tom.
Sounds good. I graduated from Oshkosh High School, and during my time there, I was allowed to go over to Badger Boys State for a week and got my first taste of government, state and local government, and also being a servant to the people. From Oshkosh, I went down to Carthage College, got a degree in public management and business administration, and one of my first jobs was a CETA position here in Oshkosh with the Oshkosh Industrial Development Committee. Our responsibilities was taking properties that had gone empty and also creating spaces that would entice businesses to come to Oshkosh at the time that the sawdust businesses were all closing their doors. We were successful in putting up a building in the North Industrial Park, which attracted business out to there. But more importantly, we started the development of the Southwest Industrial Park. That Southwest Industrial Park has been instrumental in bringing business to Oshkosh and jobs, which are important. After my job at the Oshkosh Industrial Development Committee, I spent 40 years in leadership positions in Oshkosh and throughout the Lake Michigan area. I'm a servant leader. I believe in those possibilities, and that we work hard together, we can make Oshkosh a better future for everybody. I'm passionate about our community and committed to make it a better place, and that's why I'm running for this office.
Thank you, Tom.
Yep.
Jacob, you're next.
Hi, how are you? So my name is Jacob Flom. I'm currently your Winnebago County Supervisor for District 16. That's a chunk of the downtown area where we're sitting right now, City Hall, and extends into the UW Oshkosh campus. So a couple other things about me. I'm also a Master's in Public Administration student at UWO. So if you're familiar with Councilman Mike Ford, he's actually one of my professors this semester. So he's a great public servant and a great teacher. I'm also involved in Oshkosh Rotary Southwest with Mr. Ulrich right there. For my day job, I work for our local member of Congress, and then additionally, I'm on the board of Most Blessed Sacrament Parish. That's St. Peter's and St. Mary's down the street. I help out with the Propel Oshkosh Young Professionals Network, Oshkosh Knights of Columbus, and Leadership Oshkosh Class of 2024. So I love this town, clearly. And I want to help make this community the best place it possibly can be. Public service is a passion of mine, and I've had it at the center of my career and my extracurriculars for the most of my time. And so I understand how government works. I'm the only person up here who's held elected office. And for me, that means networking through public-private partnerships, understanding the interplay between the state and local and federal levels. So for me, Oshkosh is at a crossroads in terms of housing, economic development, and affordability. We need leaders who have the background and understanding to tackle these issues. And my experience on the Winnebago County Board puts me in a position where I can start working with my members, with members of City Council on day one. I'll be doing my utmost to work with city staff, create consensus with other members of council, and have an open door policy with the community. Servant leadership means a lot to me. I think the city's primed to enter the next generation, and I really want to be a part of helping it get there. So thank you.
Thank you, Jacob. Chris.
Hi, good evening, everybody. My name is Chris Larson. Thanks to the League for hosting. I was born and raised in Oshkosh. I attended college in Eau Claire and then worked in the restaurant industry in Madison for a few years. My wife and I relocated back to Oshkosh, which is both of our hometowns, in 2008 to open a restaurant. And since then have been very, very engaged in my local community. We also have since opened a grocery store in downtown Oshkosh. So small business ownership is part of what we do. I am currently vice chair of the Downtown Oshkosh Business Improvement District. I'm current past chair of Discover Oshkosh. I've been on a really long list of boards and commissions for the city. I won't bore you with them. They're all on my website if you'd like to read them. I'm co-founder of Oshkosh Jazz Fest, co-founder of Oshkosh Slow Roll, founder of Oshkosh Distinguished Gentleman's Ride. So lots and lots and lots of things, and it's a long list, and again, I don't want to go through it all now. But why I'm running for this office currently is for many years I said that I was very effective in those roles that I held in the city, and it was a good feeling for me to be able to affect actual change. I think that's gotten a little harder for me in the last 5 or 6 years, and I hope that in this position we can affect more positive change for the city that I love the most.
Thank you. DJ.
Thank you. My name is DJ Nichols. I'm 34 years old, and I'm running for City Council. First, thank you to the League of Women Voters for hosting this forum. I don't come from a wealthy family. My mom raised me and my brother largely on her own, and I've been working since I was 14 years old. I was the first in my family to graduate from college and then law school, relying on student loans to pay for it all, which I'm still paying. And today, I'm on the senior leadership team for Great Wolf Lodge, a hospitality company proudly founded in Wisconsin that employs over 12,000 hardworking people in 22 cities, driving over $1 billion in revenue every year. Let me share a quick story about why I'm running. 2 years ago, my neighbor asked my husband Lee and I if we knew about a road project in front of our homes and the associated special assessments. While we didn't hear anything about it, we learned quickly that some neighbors were concerned that they'd be forced from their homes due to the price tag of the unrequested work. In response, I asked each of the neighbors to sign a petition opposing a part of the project. While appreciative of that approach, the neighborhood was confident that the city and officials would not care. Through the efforts of our community and consistent outreach to city officials, despite only hearing back from 2 council members, when the matter came to a vote, we won. But surprisingly, 4 council members who voted in our favor apologized to city staff for disrupting their plans. It was that moment I decided to run. I think the city staff do their jobs very well. However, it seems to me our residents are being treated like numbers on a page rather than living, breathing people and families. What's been missing is the basic consideration of the impact that city policies have on real families living and working in Oshkosh. I'm running because I want to change that narrative. I belong on city council because I understand that people in our community are doing the best they can, despite at times just barely getting by. I have the experience as a senior leader in a large organization that keeps thousands of families safe and protected every day, respecting its roots and valuing its employees while exceeding expectations in financial performance. If elected, my promise to you is to work for, but more importantly, to care about you and your family. I'd be honored to earn your vote on April 2nd, and I'm excited to answer some of your questions tonight. Thanks.
Thank you. Christopher.
Good evening. My name is Christopher Ulrich. Thank you to the League for hosting tonight. I know many of you. I'm a townie, very proud of that. I was born and raised here. I'm a product of our school system. I'm a product of our community and our shared history. I am also a first-generation college and master's graduate, and I hold a master's of business administration here from Oshkosh. I like to think that my family has a pretty mixed background, very blue-collar. In fact, our oldest farm is still operating out in Akaime to an extent. We were construction workers, we were city workers, we were small business owners. My grandpa Norm owned a barber shop downtown. And that was the upbringing that I came up with. I remember watching council meetings with my grandparents and with my parents growing up and just being engaged at that level. And subconsciously, that planted a seed of servant leadership in me. My last position was with the Oshkosh Area Community Foundation. 6 years ago, I left the workforce to be a stay-at-home parent. I have 2 beautiful daughters, and I am a stay-at-home parent, and I consider myself a professional volunteer. I have the time to treat this position like a full-time job, and running for council has been a complete joy. Meeting with so many of you who have reached out on email or online or even in person, going and talking with constituents about the issues at hand. I have volunteered for well over 20 different nonprofits in Oshkosh in my time here, and as well as serving on 3 city commissions, the Plan Commission, the Landmarks Commission, and the Stormwater Board. To me, the most effective counselors have had their time working with the city government to know how it actually functions, and now I'm ready to take that next step. But why I'm running, I think a lot of it gets down to a sense of duty, and what duty means is different for some people. Sometimes they're called to the service or police. To me, it is this kind of social community service. It's vocation, as I like to say. My wife is a teacher. She's a choir director, and she's brilliant. And she was born to do that as a calling. And I feel my calling is in community service. That's why I want to be your councilman.
Thank you. Now we're going to ask public policy questions that were either submitted in advance or the public can submit tonight. Remember, if you need a card, just ask one of the league members around the room. You will have 1 minute to respond to each question. We're going to start with you, Tom, with the first question. The question is, please share your experience with city government. On what boards and commissions have you served?
I was on the Traffic Commission for a while. Back in those days, the Sioux Line Railroad caused great havoc in the city of Oshkosh, so we were looking at underpasses, overpasses, but we finally settled on get them off of the east side over there and get them combined with the Chicago Northwestern line, which really aided the throughput of transport or traffic throughout our city. Being on the Oshkosh Industrial Development Committee, that was a committee that was funded both by the city government and local business leaders. Here you've got people working that really cared about the community, going together to bring more business to Oshkosh, which at that point in time was very important to the growth of the city. So that's my involvement in the city affairs.
Thank you. Jacob?
Thank you very much. So my experience in government stems from the county, and on the county board, I've served on 4 committee, commissions, and boards. I'm fortunate enough to serve on the Judiciary and Public Safety Committee. There, we've been forging public-private partnerships. We've started a sobriety program in the county jail, which is something I'm very proud of. It's a pilot program for people who are dealing with alcohol and opioid addictions, and we're working towards getting them back into society and a clean, sober lifestyle. So that's something that I'm very proud of that we've achieved on the Judiciary Committee. The other committees that I'm a part of, the Information Technology Committee, helping government run more efficiently. I'm also a member of the Winnebago County Safe Streets Committee. So that is basically the Criminal Justice Coordinating Committee. Again, a lot of work with the drug court, a lot of work with the upcoming mental health court, and those are human services that I very much value. And then lastly, I chaired a task force about the number of committees, commissions, and boards that the county has. So understanding the committee structure for both the city and the county level is very important to me. Working together with your colleagues, creating consensus, that's a very important thing. So that's my committee service, and I'm very happy and will serve on any committee or commission or board that I'm appointed to on the council.
Okay, to be clear, the question did refer to city government. Is there any experience there you'd like to share?
Not necessarily, no.
Thank you. Chris?
Sure. I'm currently on and have been on the Downtown Oshkosh Bid Board for 14 years. Discover Oshkosh is residually city, at least, because we help collect and administer room tax dollars. I was on the Special Assessment Task Force, which thankfully has been fixed now, but that was 2018, 2019. I was on the most past recent Downtown Oshkosh Visioning Plan, and the new one, which is coming shortly, I was interviewed for also. I was one of the first board members on the Arts and Beautifications Committee, and I think that's it.
Okay, thank you. DJ?
Thank you. I'm currently an alternate and have been since 22 on the Oshkosh Plan Commission. I absolutely love the work that we get to do there. We're actually setting policy for the city, making judicial decisions sometimes. It's a fantastic time. On the private side, for my job at Great Wolf, I'll just mention too, in relation to city governments, I manage compliance for a company that operates in 22 cities in 19 states, oftentimes working on new development projects that are between $200 and $300 million each, working on local incentives, public transportation issues, and other concerns you would expect to bring a large corporation to a relatively small town. So my relationship with city government is not just in Oshkosh, it's actually across the United States. Thanks.
Thank you. Christopher?
Thank you. As alluded to in my opening statement, I have served on 3 city commissions this decade, and at the end of 2020, I was appointed by Lori Palmieri to the Landmarks Commission. There we have set up a great relationship with the Herald, educating our public on historical architecture monthly, and safeguarding many of our historic properties, and working on adaptive reuse and proper restoration and many other things. I was on the Stormwater Board for a year and a half, until that was disbanded by committee last April. And that was an excellent opportunity to learn, because I did not have a background in stormwater management, and it was a difficult commission to fill. But I additionally serve on the Plan Commission as of December 2023, and DJ's exactly right. I think it's incredibly important because we are making huge zoning land issues that affect all of us. And when you make decisions that affect the map of Oshkosh, that shapes businesses, that shapes housing, that shapes everything. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Karen.
Jacob, we're going to start this question with you. Sure. So please share how you are currently employed, and some of you already have, but how you're currently employed and how this experience will benefit you if elected.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've spent most of my time as a staffer on the federal and state government levels. So I'm currently a staffer for our local member of Congress. And for me, you really get to understand and really get to delve into policy and the interplay between the state, federal, and local level. So for me, constituent service is my number one responsibility. It's something that I'm very proud of. It's something that you have to do on the local level. And understanding the interplay between federal services, state services, and local services, and the mandates that may come from those. So I think I have a unique perspective there because understanding the legislative side and then also in my master's degree program, understanding the operational side gives us kind of a clue into possibly looking at grants, possibly looking at what the mandated services are and understanding those and having those in the back of your head. So that's incredibly important to me. Having that aspect, that service in government leads me to believe that I'm quite qualified for this position because you understand the differences and the levels and the interplays that go into this. So I think I bring a unique approach in that regard, and I'm very fortunate to have done it.
Thank you, Jacob. Chris?
Sure. My wife and I, along with our business partner, own a restaurant in downtown Oshkosh, a grocery store in downtown Oshkosh. So I am a small business owner, have been for the majority of my life. I think that sort of representation is good in this sort of setting because we live and die by budgets and the way we treat our employees and the way we treat our customers. This is a customer service kind of business up here, whether you like it or not. That role is also, because I've been at it for a minute, led me to get into some further advocacy stuff. I'm recent past chair of the Wisconsin State Restaurant Association. So I do spend time in Madison and also in DC talking about issues that affect my business, but also the people and the places I like.
Thank you, Chris. DJ?
Thanks, Karen. Like I mentioned, I work for a company called Great Wolf Lodge, which was founded in the Wisconsin Dells. My title is Vice President, Assistant General Counsel. I'm an attorney for the organization, primarily focusing on employment and labor law, compliance, again, in 22 cities and 19 states. Our company last year did about $1.3 billion. We have three $300 million developments in place right now, so I'm working on financing and compliance in those areas. At my company, I also get to serve on the Executive DE&I Committee, on the Executive ESG Committee, and I serve as Secretary of our Scholarship Foundation, which gave out over $250,000 last year to Great Wolf employees across the country. So if elected, I'll be the only attorney represented on the Oshkosh City Council. I talk about zoning and compliance every day. So those are the things I'll bring to council. Thank you.
May I ask what ESG stands for?
Environmental, social, and governance.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Christopher?
I've been employed by my family for the last 6 years, and if I have gained any new skills, it is listening and patience and the ability to compromise. Prior to that, I was in the nonprofit world, both for the Community Foundation, and I served as an executive director for 3 years of a nonprofit up in Appleton, New Voices Choir. A modest budget, but a great deal of governance work and collaboration with other nonprofits in the area. If anything, I would say I bring a vast knowledge of our community nonprofits to this upcoming commission, which is vital for the work that we do for private-public partnerships and work with nonprofits as well. Thank you.
Thanks, Christopher.
You still have Tom.
Oh, sorry, Tom.
Right.
I'm so sorry.
No problem.
I pulled a Marge.
You're just trying to make me feel better. I get it.
Currently, I'm a part-time consultant. Haven't worked in a couple of years. Once my mother broke her back, I decided that since my other siblings were working, I'd come home and see if we could take care of her. She's now in Bella Vista, so we make sure we visit her every day. But I've spent 40 years in leadership positions, honing these leadership positions, most 20 years at Oshkosh Truck Corporation. So I understand budgets, I understand how to save money against budgetary amounts, how to make sure that the business is profitable. And one of the issues we do have is that of being able to control costs. And we've done it very successfully over there through the implementation of lean principles and also the implementation of servant leadership programs. So that's what I'll bring is 40 years of experience in government contracting.
Thank you, Tom.
Okay, this question will go to Chris first. What is your position on the City of Oshkosh's current form of government that it has in place with the city council members and mayor being elected and hiring the city manager.
My favorite topic first. This is great. Thank you. I appreciate it. No, I'm very much in favor of the form of government we have, which is council and manager form of government. I think that is the right fit for this size city. I know that there's lots of talk about it. There's lots of talk about it, as both of you know. Every election cycle, this tends to come up, which is good because it's a good topic to discuss. It's a good thing that all of us should discuss in public. To me, whether it's the one we have or it's aldermanic and higher elected official, it comes down to transparency and correspondence from the folks who get elected. This is a role of conduit between the people in the audience and city staff and city manager, no matter how you cut it. But to me, the size of the city we have, the council manager form of governance we have at current is the right form.
Thank you. DJ?
Thank you. I absolutely support our city manager form of government. I think I agree with Chris. The size of our government, the size of our city, having a professional and consistent person leading the city makes a ton of sense to me. The way I view the relationship of council, as I step away from the microphone, the way I view the relationship of council and the city manager is very much like a board of directors and a CEO. So just taking it back to my business experience. And so as long as the board of directors, the city council are setting good priorities and goals for the city manager and holding that person accountable, I think we're set up for success. The other side of it, though, is that the board of directors has to be responsible to the shareholders, and so city council must respond to the citizens of Oshkosh who are electing them and putting them in their place. So I support the city manager form of government. I think it makes a ton of sense for Oshkosh. Thanks.
Thank you. Christopher?
I'll echo what these last two have said and add that it's critical that we have an actual experienced executive leading the city, as opposed to the opportunity to have a mayor that cycles every 2, 4, 6 years, whatever that term is, and they come in not necessarily being prepared to lead the personnel and budget of the city and then cycle over. So I think that having a city manager is crucial. And additionally, I'd like to touch on the fact that council members are at-large council members, and we do represent all of Oshkosh. I've lived on the south side, north side, west side, and I know that those are different people, but we're all Oshkoshians. So I like to think that I can represent everyone, and I would not like to go back to an alderman system ever. Thank you.
Thank you. Tom?
Well, this management system has worked well for Oshkosh for many years. I'm really interested in what the people and their perception. If they feel that they're not getting served with the current form of government, I'd like to know that, and I would like to know that in that, 20 years ago, through referendum, they introduced this mayoral system, and I think they did that for a reason. They wanted to hold somebody accountable for the activity in the executive branch of the government. And I'd like to go back to the people one more time and say, okay, what are our expectations through this type of government, and do we need to change because we're not getting the accountability piece through the executive branch?
Thank you. Jacob?
So Oshkosh is currently a Chapter 64 city, so that essentially is a council manager system, and it's worked for us. And I know there's been some discussions about changing from an elected mayor to a council president that is mostly appointed by council. So they would appoint one of the 7 to be the council president. For me, I think if that system is going to go forward, I know there was some debate on that recently. I would like it to go to referendum so that the people can have a say about what they ultimately want Oshkosh to see. But our city manager system has worked. You, as a member of city council, are policy and the budget. You do not control operations. That is for the executive to do. So you don't run the bus schedule, you don't run police patrols, you set policy and the budget, and you are responsible for communicating with your constituents. So I like the system that we have now. If it is to change in any way, shape, or form, I think it needs to go to the people for them to decide. But the system we've had now has worked for nearly 50, 60 years now, and I don't see any reason to change it.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to start with you, DJ, and I promise I won't forget you, Chris, at the end. So,
I don't care.
do you believe it is appropriate to Do you believe it is appropriate to confer with fellow council members on matters that are on the agenda, part of public meetings prior to the public meeting, and if so, to what extent and why?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, and I think it really speaks to the ethics of council. I think there's a walking meetings requirement under Wisconsin law and city ordinance that the city attorney briefs every new council person. Certainly I was briefed as when I started Plan Commission. And there is a level of trust in the people that are appointed to these bodies or elected to these bodies to not collude, to not prevent votes from happening in a way that shouldn't be happening. We can't allow that. Now, there's a practical side as well, where you have to have conversations with fellow members of council. People deserve to be respected in private and in public, and sometimes that means you have to have private conversations so you're not embarrassing people in public. I think building consensus, identifying compromise, and working to make Oshkosh a better place sometimes happens behind a closed door, but I think the final vote and the final meeting and the final communication has to happen in public. Thanks.
Thank you, DJ. Christopher?
Oh, I agree with DJ. And to expand upon that, I think it's important that council members are talking with each other and being proactive on things that may not necessarily be on an agenda for an upcoming meeting, but that they want to work on, be that working on upcoming changes to policy or other things that the city needs to do. And so, ergo, they'll be talking about things. But yes, transparency is an important issue in our government, and those decisions need to be made in public without collusion at the time of.
Thank you, Christopher. Tom?
Well, I think for building consensus is important that we talk to each other. I mean, and if we do it in a manner that doesn't doesn't bring collusion perceptions to the forefront, I think it'll be a positive thing. Other council members have different points of view, and I'm always interested in listening to these points of view and trying to understand where they're coming from, so that I can shape my opinion based upon a lot of different inputs, and I think that's important. So speaking with other council members, other people in the community is a very important piece to building the consensus that we really need to bring good decisions for the people of Oshkosh.
Thank you, Tom. Jacob?
So, as a member of the county board, we are briefed day in and day out about walking quorum rules, and that can be everything from a reply all on an email or to conversations that you may have with other people. So, we have these rules and laws and statute for a reason. And that's because transparency is the number one thing in government. Wisconsin has some of the toughest open meeting laws in the country, and I'm very proud of that. We should all be proud of that. And all these deliberations deserve to happen in public, in front of the people, where it's accessible for everybody to see, whether that's live streamed, whether that's on Oshkosh Media. It's very, very important that these deliberations happen publicly. And for things that need to happen privately, we have closed session. We can go into that. We can have those discussions in closed session if it's a more sensitive topic. But open meetings laws are there for a reason. Walking quorum laws are there for a reason, and they need to be respected.
Thank you, Jacob. Chris?
Yeah, and I'll echo everything everybody said. I mean, I think we all pretty much have it correct. In a perfect world, everyone would come to every meeting with all the information they need to make the most informed choices on anything that comes before them. So we'd have the ample time to interact with the community and have all the information we ever need from city staff. So full transparency all the time would be the right way to have that happen. And I think more often than not, that does happen. And yeah, to everybody's point, consensus should happen in public, in transparency all the time.
Thank you.
Okay. That's all the way around again, isn't it? And this time I start with Christopher, correct?
Yes.
See, you guys got our system down now, don't you? Yeah. Are there situations in which you may find yourself in conflict with your work, professional, or personal life, and how would you handle that?
I do not have any work conflicts, which is one reason I think I make an excellent councilman. There are no conflicts of interest. I do not get paid, so the decisions will not affect any income that I receive. If anything, I have a lot of time to devote to the work that needs to be done. Thank you.
Tom?
Well, being somewhat self-retired here, I can spend all of my time and not really have any conflicts with anything going on, so I have ample time to devote. I'm willing to devote all that time, and we'll have no problem with any conflicts with any work situations or anything else.
Thank you. Jacob?
So for me, any federal earmark or any federal grant, I will be abstaining from. I think it's very important to be above board with that kind of stuff. There was recently a vote at the County Judiciary Committee where I did abstain from because it involved the federal earmark for airboats. So I will continue that practice on council.
Thank you. Chris?
Yeah, there could, in theory, real estate stuff that comes up. I don't think much professional stuff, but development things and so on and so forth. I'd echo what both judge candidates said in the first place. The perception of that is enough for me to recuse myself from that if it comes up.
Thank you. DJ?
Thank you. I actually had to ask permission to run for city council by my employer, and the response I got was that there's not a Great Wolf Lodge on the horizon for Oshkosh in the near term. So while that's disappointing, I don't see a professional conflict in the near term. My husband is a surgeon at Aurora, certainly to the extent that there was, that Aurora needed to do something specific with the city. I'd have to talk with the city attorney about a conflict, but I agree with what everyone's saying is the appearance of conflict can be problematic. And when I've had to address that on Plan Commission with other issues, I've reached out to the city attorney to say, is there a conflict here? I think that level of humility is important for all of us to talk to the city attorney, be ready to ask questions, and ensure that it doesn't appear there's a conflict. Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, we're back down to Tom, I believe. So the budget is a council responsibility. What are your thoughts on our current debt, and what do you think we can do to control debt while providing for the city?
Obviously, we have to look at our cost structures. That is a big piece of the whole budget. We have to take from the city manager down through all the department heads and really start to drive home the thought process that you just can't keep coming back to the taxpayers for more increase and more money. We have to find ways to lean out our processes in the services that we provide to all of the people here in Oshkosh and find ways to eliminate waste and drive down cost. And that's a mindset that says, hey, your budget line item for next year has to go down. It can't go up again. And we got to hold people accountable for that so that we can start driving out these costs and not keep increasing city taxes.
Thank you, Tom. Jacob?
So for me, the city's long-term debt is still a particular issue of concern. For me, it's actually gotten better over the past decade, and that's something I really want to work with the Long-Range Finance Committee on, because that, the long-term fiscal health of our city is something we should all care about here, and so that we're able to make the necessary investments. I know the chamber recently came out and said that most of their members would like to see more roads be paved in the city, and I'd love to take advantage of that. So if we can manage our long-term debt appropriately, which we have been doing, we can go ahead and take a crack at investing more in our roads. But in terms of budgeting, I fully believe that the city can fully fund all its services and do everything that it needs to do while being financially responsible. I've been in 2 budget processes on the county level. We were able to reduce our property tax levy while getting all the services that we need to get done, and even including some CIP work in there, which we do every year. So for me, there's going to be 2 separate items. There's the CIP, then there's also the mainline budget. For me, I'd like to see some of the CIP expand with the road funding, and just make sure that we can keep taxes and fees under control, because that cuts into the affordability of the city. So if we want to be a more affordable city, we need to keep our eye on that tax levy, and we want to make sure.
Thank you, Jacob.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you. Chris?
Sure. So I think one of the things the most recent council and the one prior to that can be most proud of is managing our debt and our levels of debt. They've done a great job, much better than most of my time here. I do think that Oshkosh is at a precipice where we need to consider future growth and future amenities and built environment and quality of life things the same way we consider debt and budgeting. So long-term finance there's lots of different ways to look at that. We need people to come here, want to move here, and want to stay here, and some of that may be more expensive in the meantime. However, I also believe that there are ways to do what we do now creatively, still manage debt, and move forward to get things moving in a more growth-focused area than where we are now.
Thank you, Chris. DJ?
Thank you. I'm going to take the question in 2 parts, if that's okay. I think that while it is absolutely council's responsibility to establish the budget, I think it's also council's responsibility to review how the staff is managing the budget once it's approved. I think we call it, in the private side, of managing the middle of the page, where you're not increasing revenue and you're not decreasing services. You are targeting your expenses and looking to see how you can have potentially cheaper items at the same quality. We did that recently with a food product at work and saved almost $1 million without reducing quality, which is incredible. Talking about the debt, I think debt is a useful tool. Like everyone's talked about, Oshkosh has reduced its debt significantly over the last several years. We're still on the high side of normal compared to our peers in the Fox Valley. So I think that's something to continue working on. But debt, again, is a powerful tool. I'm in the middle of helping refinance a 10-figure debt deal with my current company. And it's something that we use. It's something you have to use responsibly. You have to be smart about it. But again, it's a tool for long-term projects sometimes. Thanks.
Thank you. Christopher?
Going last is tricky because I agree with so much that's been said before. You don't want to reiterate it. I agree that we've been doing a good job managing our debt in the last couple of years in particular. When it comes to budgeting, I like to think of it as a three-leg stool, not just increasing taxes or managing expenses, but also the opportunity to grow that tax base, right? Our housing market is going to grow. We've got more housing developments that are going up Riff Road area, center of the city, that will bring in more money for funding and management in the future. But whereas expenses are concerned, I think it's important that we reevaluate what we're doing for fees, making sure that they are low and comparable with other cities, and that we are not spending superfluously. Perhaps an additional review board, a third-party kind of system to examine some of the spending that's happening would be helpful.
Thank you.
Okay, this question goes to you first, Jacob. How would you address the issue of the lack of low to moderate income housing in our community?
All right, so you look at the 2020, I think it was 2021 or 2022 Housing Needs Assessment Study. It calls out the need for that. So one of the things that I would really like to see is for our recent college graduates to want to start their careers here and stay here after they graduate. And that means having more of that low to middle income housing so that they can get started with their careers. I think for me, having a broad availability of housing is what everybody wants in Oshkosh. And a couple things come to my mind when I think of that. The first is proactive remediation of brownfield and blighted lots. We have a lot of empty space in the city that hasn't been utilized. I understand that remediation is expensive. I understand that there are questions about where that waste goes. However, I do think we need to get creative, think out of the box, look at some grant funding, and try to proactively remediate those spaces so that they can be used, and housing is a big deal for them. The center city is a great place to have a lot of those future developments. There's one going up on North Main Street right now that actually was on a blighted lot. So if we can use that as a template going forward and utilizing these empty spaces, I'd like to see that as well. And then hopefully we can mitigate the cost of living increases and whatnot, and try our best to make sure this is an affordable place to live.
Thank you. Chris?
Sure. This is another favorite of mine. I think there are lots of things we can do. I would start with managing best we can the housing stock we have that should apply better to the folks who need it the most. I'm a housing first guy. So immediately, as fast as I could, I would reinstate a housing authority board. I would form a tenant resource center. There is necessity in building code and planning to change lots of stuff so we can incentivize the right projects at the right places. Whether anybody wants to believe it or not, there is a perception that Oshkosh is a harder place to build and a harder place to develop than other cities nearby. We won't get to the type of housing we need fast enough if we can't also address that perception as well. So I think there are multiple steps here, but now is exactly the right time to do it, and it's imperative that we do so because it is competitive with our neighboring cities.
Thank you. DJ?
Thanks. I like getting to go third because I get to say I agree with what they said and add to it. I think that we have really good examples of both direct and indirect avenues to increase the housing stock for low and moderate and high income, all the housing stock in the area. I think we have a good example in Sheboygan with the Founders Point Housing Project, which is a public-private partnership with the county, the city, and private developers to build a housing inventory for first-time home buyers. It's an incredible example. We can learn from their mistakes as well. I think indirectly, you can look at cities like South Bend, Indiana, which is similar in size, demographic, and industrial use, that has won awards for zoning reform, which has encouraged housing developments in the area while ensuring that they have safe housing and safe zoning rules. The other thing I'll mention too, and I'm sure there will be a question about TIFs eventually, but the state allows us to extend a TIF for 1 year for low-income housing usage, to use that revenue for low-income housing usage. So that's something we absolutely should look at and consider every time we're nearing an expiration. Thanks.
Thank you. Christopher?
I'll speak to three specific examples. I am a capitalist. I believe in the free hand of the market, and I think if we increase the stock of housing of all different levels, if there is enough of it, that will naturally drive down some prices just because of competition. But while we're doing that, I think we ethically can try to play at making sure that there are a certain percentage of new apartments, new housing that goes up at a certain percentage below market rate to account for what we think is affordable housing. Secondly, I think we need to continue our work with infill in the city, making sure all of our lots are used well, vacant properties, etc. And lastly, I think we need to give more resources to landlords and make the barriers that they have to addressing some of the work that needs to be done on their houses, make that barrier lower so that we can increase the quality of life and hopefully draw down some of those prices that are then passed on to tenants.
Thank you. Tom?
Well, we're at a situation right now where we have low supply and great demand. And there are many projects going on now that will take care of increasing our supply. You got the Jefferson Main Street project over here. You got the people out on 20th Street. You got Butamore. So you got a lot of good things happening, which hopefully will increase our supply. And once you start increasing that supply, you're going to start to see the market prices come down, because right now people are taking advantage of this low supply, high demand marketplace that we are living in right now. But there's a lot of good things going on in Oshkosh right now, and I continue to support what's going on with all the different housing projects that we have. Thank you.
I started with you, Jake, right?
Yes, you did.
Okay. It's your
I
turn.
have more to say.
Come to the Astor Forum on Monday. It's all about housing. Yeah.
So here you'll all be able to come up with what you really think, because if you all say, I'm going to agree with the person who went before, we have a problem here. Okay? So Chris, we're starting with you. What do you anticipate being one of the major issues in this term, and how do you plan on addressing it?
To me, it's the one we just answered, and that's an easy cop-out, so thanks for starting with me. But no, housing is most important to me. It is something that we do have to address. We have a beautiful housing study that proves it. I mean, we did the work, we paid for it, we got the data we wanted out of it, and now it's time to execute what we paid for. And I truly believe, I mean, that is an issue that affects workforce, it affects tax base, it affects revenue, it affects quality of life. It's all the things we want, and we've got a unique time and opportunity to start doing it better than our neighbors and to get ahead of them doing so.
Thank you, Chris. DJ?
Yeah, so I won't take the cop out. I think housing is the most major issue. I will talk about a different major issue just to make it more fun for everybody. That's okay. I think kind of two major issues. One is water. We talk about water and infrastructure. For the better part of last year, we had a 60% clogged water intake pipe, which is the only pipe bringing water in from Lake Winnebago, providing 12 million gallons a day to our city. It took almost a year for that to be corrected. The Clearwell's water project, of course, has to be completed. We have to talk about lead pipes in people's homes. People don't know they have lead pipes in some of their homes. We have to address that. We have to talk about PFAS. We need to talk to our state government to move that along. The other thing I'll talk about, and I know I've limited time, is communication transfer, information transfer between the city and its residents. I think our website needs to be worked on a lot, but I'll say a little. I think that we need to make sure that there's a push and pull of information. People know where to find it if they want to pull it. They know who to ask if they don't know where it is, and pushing information, finding people where they are, talking to them where they are, and making sure they have the information they need. Thanks.
Thank you, DJ. Christopher?
Yeah, these are all great issues, and it's good that we have different things, so I'll take two. I think next year the council is going to deal with the fallout and the greater issues surrounding special assessments and the change from that. But an unknown that I'm concerned about that will weigh heavily on the council within the next 1 to 3 years is the potential hiring of a new city manager. I think Manager Roloff is nearing the end of his term, and that is going to be the council's primary responsibility. And the city manager really does affect the culture of City Hall. I think it's very top-down, and that culture change will benefit some of the more major changes that we want to see for our city from a leadership perspective. And it'll be our responsibility to make sure we have the right person in place.
Thank you, Christopher. Tom?
Speaking with the many folks that I interact with in the city of Oshkosh, taxes is their major concern. People can't keep going on raising taxes. I mean, a lot of people want to leave the city of Oshkosh and go someplace else because they can't bear the burden of the tax increases. And now you add a wheel tax to that and other special assessments, and it's just too much. And so somehow we have to address the tax issue and find ways to drive down costs so we're not coming back to the public for more and more money and increasing taxes. So my biggest issue will be, how do we start taking control of the processes that provide the services and drive cost out of that so we can lower the taxes to the people?
Thank you, Tom. Jacob?
So all of these were fantastic points, but for some variety, I'll throw in a new one. I'm going to say workforce development and talent retention. We have more jobs than people. And that situation is only going to get worse as we have more baby boomers retire. So I want Oshkosh to be the place where people want to start their careers, whether it's from UWO, other cities in Wisconsin, or from around the country and around the Midwest. I moved here for that. I moved here for family originally and found a job, but I fell in love with this city, and I want other people to have that same experience that I've had. It's very important that other people understand how great of a city we really are. And so working with the UW system, working with Fox Valley Tech, working with our other chamber partners and GoEDC partners, I think we can put together some form of steering committee about talent retention. So we want to make sure that the future generations are in Oshkosh and they're ready to stay in Oshkosh.
Thank you.
Okay, this is DJ's first, correct? Okay,
Go easy on me.
I'll do my best. Do you support the creation of a DEI director position for the city of Oshkosh?
I do, yes. And I'll tell you why, too, if you want to know.
That'd be great.
I think people misunderstand DEI directors and DEI committees in a lot of ways. Again, on the private side, I am on the executive committee for an organization that has 12,000 employees, and we added our first DEI director 3 or 4 years ago now. And people were really confused. People thought we were trying to shove something down my throat that I don't believe in. And in reality, what this person does every day is come to us on the senior team who are making decisions, and he says, hey, here's a perspective you haven't thought about, or if you do it that way, you're going to offend someone, and that's going to be distracting at best to a community or to you. And so he keeps us accountable. He talks about what's happening in the world, things that we might not understand. The last thing I'll mention is, if you look at us, we're not a very diverse group of people. The next city council are going to be 7 white guys. We need help making sure we have perspectives of people who are not going to be represented on council, and so absolutely I support it. Thank you.
Thank you. Christopher?
Diversity of thought is particularly important. Yes, I would support a DEI position if there was appropriate funding for it. I think it brings us in line with other municipalities and extra municipal entities like the school district. Easy answer.
Thank you. Tom?
Yeah, I would support a diversity position. We do need to have the inputs of people with varying backgrounds, of work life experiences, and that's what you would hope that a person in this type of position would bring to the council and to the people here in Oshkosh.
So for me, I'm open to it. I would just like to see kind of what the day-to-day looks like and kind of what the budgetary impact may be. I think it's very important that we get differing backgrounds and views in city government because, like what DJ said, we're not a very diverse crowd up here. So one of the reasons why I ran is because I'm one of the younger members of the county board, actually the youngest. And so kind of to get that youth avenue in there, I would like to see that. So I'm open to it. I'd just like to see what the specifics would be when a proposal comes to the table.
Thank you. Chris?
It's an absolute yes from me. We're way behind our neighboring communities on this. It's an asset that we cannot afford to be without any further. I would go one step further than that even and say that our current DEI committee should be more than just advisory. It should be legislative to some degree in the same way that Plan Commission has triggering items that come to them. There should be items that go to DEI before council gets to decide them as well. There should be a voice in that at every turn legislatively.
Thank you. And I'm going to take the next question also. This is going to Christopher. Same question, Sustainability Director.
Sustainability Director, again, I'll echo what Jacob said. I'd like to see what the day-to-day is going to be for that. But as I recall, this has been a question before and not necessarily motion or movement has happened on it. I think sustainability is incredibly important for environmental sustainability and building sustainability. So if there's budget for it, I think it is the correct progressive move for Oshkosh. Yes.
Thank you. Tom?
Well, I'm just going to echo his comments. I mean, you got to look at sustainability and what we have to do to continue to keep our city, our state, our planet sustainable. Those are important pieces, and to have somebody leading that and making sure that we understand what are the next phases throughout this whole process is an important part of the education and also being alert to all of what's happening in our world today.
Thank you. Jacob?
So again, I'd like to echo what Christopher said earlier. I'd like to see a little bit more about the day-to-day, but however, I think it's very important that we be good stewards of the environment that we're handed. We have a very beautiful city. In terms of our natural resources, we are really the envy of a lot of cities, and so it's important for us to, again, be very good stewards of that. So would like to see kind of the budgetary perspective on it, what the day-to-day would look like, but I would be open to it.
Thank you. Chris?
It's easy yes for me again. It's something that's imperative. It's just something that cities of good worth should be doing and looking at. Short answer, I know, but it's an easy one for me.
Thank you. DJ?
Also an easy yes for me, but I'll have more to say. I think that absolutely we should have a sustainability position in Oshkosh. I think if you look outside, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to realize this March is really weird at best. Last month, February, was the hottest February on record ever since it's ever been recorded. The tenets of sustainability are environmental responsibility, economic viability, and social justice. I think those are things that are easy to agree on, especially when we live in a place like Oshkosh that's surrounded by green space. There's water that flows through the middle of our city. Those are things we have to talk about. And then I'll just mention this, and this is true in my opinion for DE&I. There's a concept, and I promise I'll come full circle, about data privacy in Europe, and it's called privacy by design. And you create these principles at the beginning of a process. I think DE&I, sustainability by design, at the beginning of a city project, you're going to save time, energy, and the environment maybe before the end of the project. So I think you got to do that. You got to do these now, and I think we talk about budgets, but I think we can't afford not to. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you very much. All of you. I realized I should have actually asked you all to define sustainability too, as in what it meant to you, but DJ did get that in there on the end, so thank you. Okay, Karen, this time it's
Can I
going to
go?
be you.
All right. And where did you start with? Who's up?
I started with Chris. I think you've got Tom.
Downtown. Okay. So, Tom, we're going to start with you. She let me back in, so I guess I've been rehired. Neighborhoods are a city strategic plan priority, particularly those in the central city, both north and south of the river. What do you believe are the most important factors in stabilizing and improving neighborhoods, and what specific role should the city play?
Well, obviously, they're supporting a lot of that development right now, and I think it's tremendous. You look at neighbors helping neighbors and cleaning up neighborhoods. You look at the age of some of the people in some of the neighborhoods, and there's people out there shoveling their walks, raking their leaves. I mean, these are what neighborhoods are all about. This is how you deal with the issues within your neighborhood, is have these neighborhood communities that can deal with the issues, whether it be crime, whether it be the look of the neighborhood. And so now you got Habitat building homes in certain areas. You've got these groups that get out there and maintain people's lawns and rebuild structures if they need that. So I think it's a tremendous program that Oshkosh has going on right now, and we need to expand it to other areas of the city.
Thank you, Tom. Jacob.
Yeah, I'd like to echo that because healthy neighborhoods are part of a healthy city and a healthy, strong city. So for me, kind of the areas in the central city, they are just brass tacks, the lowest income areas that we have in town. And I think supporting them is paramount because if you want, good, safe neighborhoods, you need to be able to provide the resources for that. And so for me, kind of expanding on our Healthy Neighborhoods program, looking at the next steps of the master plan, and if there isn't a master plan, to adopt one formally and take a look and say, okay, how can we do a little bit better in supporting what we've already started? So love the healthy neighborhoods. I love our neighborhood associations, and I would like to see that continue.
Thank you, Jacob. Chris.
I can't do this one in a minute, so I'm going to keep it shorter. So I was one of the founders of the Downtown Oshkosh Neighborhood Association. I went through the process. I led the team. We did that because there wasn't one, and there should have been one. And it was a big hole for a long time. Currently, I am working on let's just call it a project with River East neighborhood in the downtown Oshkosh bid, where we'd like to see some proactive changes made by the city with regards to undergrounding utilities. See how this is too big a topic for 1 minute thing. So long story short, it's a massive asset that we even have Go H&I. The neighborhoods are strong and they're delightful, and letting them be more involved in the legislative process and having a voice in the places they live is more important than we're giving it credit for right this second.
Thank you. DJ.
Thank you. Interestingly, in my opening, I talked about a project that the city put in place in my neighborhood, and that's where I met most of my neighbors. So the city is involved in a kind of a backwards way of helping me get to know my neighbors. Ages 33 to 93 at the time in that project. We probably don't agree on much, but we really agreed on one thing, and the city helped with that. So that was good. I think our neighborhood associations are incredibly important. I actually got an email from one of my neighbors to my campaign email account. He said, "Hey, who's the president of our neighborhood association?" And I said, "We don't have a neighborhood association." So that's something we need to work on. I think to the extent that there is a defunct neighborhood association or there is not a neighborhood association, I would love for the city to take an active role in introducing those people to each other and explaining the importance of neighborhoods. I think that will give council members better feedback. I think it will give the neighbors more faith in their government, and it will help them get to know each other better. So I think it's a huge role that doesn't exist today for the city formally that should. Thanks.
Thank you, DJ.
Yeah, neighbors helping neighbors, it's incredibly important. I'm on the steering committee for Menominee South, on and off, and it's amazing what you can do when you have a collective entity that wants to make progress in their neighborhood. Seasand and Sailorland was one of our projects. We went and we did fundraising, and then we worked with the city and we implemented that project, and those kind of things can happen with any neighborhood association. So I think it's important when you have an entity like that can come and lobby for some important work, be it utilities that Chris talked about or otherwise, come and talk to the city or other groups. Hugely crucial. And the city should definitely fund it, continue to, from whatever source we can.
Thank you.
Okay. My turn this time, right?
Again.
We'll start with you, Jacob.
All right.
Oshkosh has a deficit of park and green space. It does.
Yes.
Would you support elevating park acquisition to a higher priority for city funding?
Yes, absolutely. And one of the reasons why is because the overall health of the community is linked to our green space. You've seen that in scientific studies, and it's something that I would like us to see take a more proactive role on. One of the things that I would actually really like to see for Pioneer Island and the Sawdust District is improved access to trails. So I'm a big runner myself. Anywhere between 3 p.m. and 5 p.m. you will see me running out on the Riverwalk. So that is a massive boon in terms of outdoor recreation, and I'd like to see us go further in that direction. I would also like to see us develop more of our park spaces in terms of recreation, so sports, disc golf is another one, rugby is becoming a larger impact item, so I would like to see us do more of that, taking a look and seeing where we can reasonably acquire some more park space. A dog park, actually, would love to see that. The county has a couple dog parks, but I think the city needs to follow up and have a dog park of its own, so absolutely.
Thank you. Chris?
Yep. Also, yes, many of you have heard me lamenting, Jacob included, the lack of our downtown Oshkosh dog park. It is, again, quality of life stuff. This is competitive things. There are 18,000 people who live in our central city, and they have people like dogs. Guess what? And there's nowhere to take them. So it's easy stuff. It's low-hanging fruit. And expanding on the beautiful parks we have. I mean, we have wonderful ones, but more and more different ones would be fantastic.
Thank you. DJ?
Yes, it's definitely a yes for me. As I think about, Jacob mentioned workforce retention earlier and attracting people here. One of the things that drew my husband and I to Oshkosh was the green space. I think COVID had some silver linings. I think we have to admit that a little bit, and it made us realize we like being outside again. I think the more green space we can have, the better. To the extent that we can identify properties that either the city owns already and is not using, those exist, or that exist out there and they need to be rehabbed or reused, I think that's an easy thing to do. We can make it a park, especially in the downtown area, which is devoid of parks. We're in our neighborhood, we have parks all around us. It's fantastic. We run through them and we use them. We take the dogs there, even though they're not fenced in. Don't tell anyone. It's fantastic. So yes, I absolutely support adding more parks to Oshkosh.
Thank you. Christopher?
I also support adding more parks, and we're definitely behind. The funding for that is hugely important. I think we need to actually finish some of the parks that we've said that we're going to do, too. There's a one out just past Carl Traeger, I forget the name of it, that's been on hold for 4 or 5 years. We're acquiring all this property around Butamore for the new development off there, and we need a park for it. We don't need to just set money aside for later. When is later going to come? We need to provide these spaces that we're promising people. I think a park is a beautiful thing, and you may come here because you love a park. I love Menominee Park. It's in my blood. I'm a parent with kids, and it is the city's role to make that foundation, to give these parks that then places like Discover Oshkosh can go out and promote the amenities that we have. So absolutely, more quality of life, green space.
Thank you. Tom?
Well, our parks are tremendous here in Oshkosh, and they're beautiful. You've got disc golf out there across from Oshkosh West at Garbage Hill. I don't know if they maintain it very well, but it was a very challenging course out there. But the expansion of parks into areas where we don't have, like Christopher mentioned, out by Traeger School. I mean, there's a lot of development going out there with people moving in. Out there is where we'd need some expanded park availability for those folks. So expanding it into areas that we don't have is a priority, and parks are an important part of the quality of life here for Oshkosh.
Thank you.
Okay. This question comes to you, Chris. Is Oshkosh doing enough to support commercial and industrial development? And if yes or no, how?
Maybe. Is that you made it hard, Karen? Traditionally, yes, in a competitive manner with our surrounding communities, maybe not as much we should be right this second. Again, to me, and I don't want to belabor the fact that there is a perception that this is a harder place to do some of those things you mentioned than other surrounding areas. And I do think it's important that this council will need to address that at some point in time. That is just the nature of it. I keep saying it's competitive with cities nearby us, but it is. So yes, as far as the infrastructure and what we need to have to make it happen, sure. Can we do better? Yes.
Thank you, Chris.
So none of the answers you asked me to give.
DJ.
I think my answer is similar in that we can always do better. Enough is never enough. When you're talking about growing the economy of Oshkosh, I think that there are direct and indirect ways that we can affect this again. I've heard from a developer in particular who a couple weeks ago we were sitting down for a meeting, and he mentioned to me that his son's kind of taken over the business, but his son would rather do business in Fond du Lac, other areas of the Fox Valley, or Sheboygan because it's easier to work with the city for zoning restrictions. I think that is unfortunate. You know that developer is telling his developer friends the same thing, and they are going to take their business elsewhere. I think you also look, Columbia University actually had a study recently that talked about migration to the Great Lakes region in the next 50 years, and I think we have to be building an infrastructure for the 22nd century if you're talking about 50 years from now. We need to catch up to 21st first, but high-speed internet, making sure our roads make sense, that we don't end up with clogged pumping stations again on Lake Winnebago. I think there are things we can do to better attract commercial and industrial development, and we need to do that. Thanks.
Thank you, DJ. Christopher.
I agree. There's always room for continuous improvement, that's for sure. When it comes to infrastructure and working in Oshkosh, I've said for a long time that we need a third-party code audit. I think there's a lot of redundancy that does scare away some of those developers who want to work in Oshkosh. But I think we're doing great things, and we shouldn't discount those. Think about all the development that's happened along Oshkosh Ave. Think about the prospects of South Main Street, the commercial properties that'll go in on Mill on Main, and some of the anchors that we've had down there industrial-wise. I think they're doing an excellent job. And I'd like to see more of that. I think smart application of TIF to beautify blighted areas and increase, the commercial sectors with those projects. I think there are a lot of opportunities for those, and if we use them wisely, Oshkosh will grow for a 22nd century economy.
Thank you, Christopher. Tom.
I think we've done an excellent job. I mean, if you look at the growth along Oshkosh Ave and all the businesses that have been put up in there in the last 2 or 3 years, it's been outstanding. The Southwest Industrial Park still has a lot of room for people to come and put their businesses in. And more importantly, we should take a look at the businesses that are no longer operating in those facilities and start to promote that more throughout the state and the nation for people that are looking for a place to relocate.
Thank you, Tom. Jacob?
Absolutely. I think there's stuff that we're doing well and stuff that we could be doing better. What DJ mentioned, that perception, or Chris mentioned, that perception about it's tougher to do business in Oshkosh than the surrounding municipalities is something that this council will really have to get a grasp on. And that's communication. Understanding that we do have a great Go EDC team with its revolving loan fund that we need, I think, to make better use of. One of the primary areas I'd like to see that is in the aviation business park on the south end of the airport. That land is currently sitting empty, and it's a great development opportunity for business in the future. So I think we also do need to go in the direction of taking a look at our building and inspections code and saying, can we eliminate any redundancies so that it is, if there is anything that we can do to make it development easier, that we can go ahead and take that action. So it's about communication and making sure that we're preparing and angling ourselves for the future. Broadband is also a part of that, instead of playing catch up. I think we need to have a proactive role instead of a reactive role. So yes, we're doing great things now. Oshkosh Avenue is one of those, but that we could be doing more and we could be doing better, and I'd like to see that happen.
Thank you.
I'm so proud of them. They've really gotten this 1-minute thing down, haven't they? DJ, this question goes to you first, and it will be the last question of the evening. In your opinion, what are the most important infrastructure projects facing the city?
Sure. I've talked about it a little bit, but I'll talk about it some more. So water, I think, is the most crucial infrastructure project we have to address. Again, the Clear Wells project absolutely has to move forward and get completed, not only because the state requires it, but because we need to make sure that we have redundancies in place. The thing I didn't mention about the 60% clogged water intake pipe to the only pumping station providing 12 million gallons to the city is that there were 15-inch redundancy pipes that were so damaged by ice shoves 10 years ago that they were an unreliable backup. We have to make sure that not only do we have that water infrastructure in place to provide water to people, but that we have appropriate backups in place in case of a catastrophic failure. Identifying lead pipes, crucial. Making sure that we have money from Madison to address the PFAS issues, absolutely crucial. Stormwater issues, we absolutely have to address. People can't buy homes that we're saying that there aren't enough already and then have flooded basements. So water is the biggest issue I think we have to address as a community. And again, as we're preparing for potential migration in 50 years, but trying to recruit people today, we have to make sure we're taking care of our water resources. Thank you.
Thank you. Christopher?
I agree with water, but he said everything that I would. So I'll bring up the opportunity for housing. I'm surprised we haven't talked about it more today. I think that's our biggest infrastructure thing for the next 10 years. And if you need a poster child for it, it's going to be all the construction that's happening off of Butamore, because we're going to see those 4-story entities raise 15 feet off level going up over the next 8-9 years. And we are going to be building infrastructure to bring those people and retain them and make sure everyone has that basic human right for housing.
Thank you. Tom?
I agree with the housing situation, and we are doing very good things right now and have a path forward to provide ample housing to retain workers. We also have to address being able to create more space and jobs and attract businesses here so that we get good paying jobs so that people can pay for the affordable housing. I'm not sure what affordable means anymore because the costs are being driven up. But having good jobs, having a place for people to live within the city, and then making sure we got a tax structure that people can live with are the important things that we have to do to attract more people to Oshkosh.
Thank you. Jacob?
All good points, but I'm going to branch out a little bit and go into our roads and bridges. We don't invest enough in our roads as a city. That's something that business owners will tell us. That's something that residents will tell us. When I'm out in the community, there will be roads where people still don't have curb and gutter. And they haven't had that for a long time, and they deserve that. So for me, making sure that we're investing in our roads, and particularly underserved areas of the city, is a big deal, but also our bridges. I mean, we've had issues with the Jackson Street Bridge. There will be a closure of the Main Street Bridge coming up. And while those are state DOT owned, I would like to see a master plan with the state DOT to eventually convert them all into fixed span structures. So that way, there's less failure points in these bridges. That way, boats can go under them and traffic can still continue, and so that we're unclogging traffic too. So roads and bridges, those are the big ones for me.
Thank you. Chris?
Sure. Until a month ago, I would have agreed with DJ that water is the first one. I am so enthused that the current council finally fixed our special assessment issue. And on top of that, I don't always agree with what the Chamber of Commerce says, but it was wonderful to hear their membership say that they want to see more infrastructure and roads and more expenditures in that. So I think whoever the next council is has a really unique opportunity to expand that part of what we do and focus on the built environment that can come with that. And things like I mentioned before, burying utility lines, quality of life issues, and beautification things that come with those. There's a really unique point in time right this second to do some of that. So that would be the most important one for me.
Thank you. Okay, at this point, we're ready for an additional statement from each of you. If you would like to make one, you can have 1 minute for anything that you would like to say, and we're going to go in reverse order this time. We'll start with you, Christopher.
This is our closing statement as well.
This is your closing statement, yes.
Great. Well, thank you. I would like to say thank you so much for hosting us all tonight. It was a really wonderful and fun night, very informative. We have a lot to look forward to as a city because these are all excellent candidates. I'd like to share that I am an avid historian, and I think that's important when you have all these decisions being made by a council that's a rotating door every few years. I bring a perspective and a know-how for the precedents that have been set in the past, so we can look back to what we may have done as we pave our way for the future. I'm also very data-driven and level-headed. If that's important to you, I will work to restore faith in nonpartisan leadership at local levels. Thank you.
Thank you. DJ?
Thanks. Thank you again to the League of Women Voters and Oshkosh Media for putting on this forum. I hope you can see that all 5 of us up here love Oshkosh. I think that's pretty apparent. But we have different backgrounds and experiences and priorities that would inform how we would represent you and your families on Oshkosh City Council. I'd encourage you to visit djnichols.com, @DJ for Oshkosh on Instagram and Facebook to learn more about me, my background, my experience, and my values. And I'd be honored to earn your vote on April 2nd. Thank you.
Thank you. Chris?
Thank you again to the League for hosting, for everybody coming. I follow council very closely, probably way more closely than I should. This is unique in that these are all great candidates, and I'm excited for that whether I'm here or not. So my role this time of year is always to encourage people to vote. Voter turnout in this election, if there's nothing else to happen, is abysmal at best. So that is step one. No matter who you vote for, the fact that you vote is important. And secondarily, correspondence and transparency is the most important part of this. We touched on it with types of government previously. So making sure that the voting public holds whoever you elect accountable to making this better for all of us going forward is the right next step.
Thank you. Jacob?
Well, I'd also like to thank the League and Oshkosh Media for making this possible tonight. This position is about servant leadership. This is about putting the needs of the community and what the community needs before what you want to see as an individual. All of us here, we're not going to agree on everything. And on council, we're not going to agree on everything, but I can tell you one thing, I want to do my best to create consensus. Where we can agree, we will have to compromise. People may not like that, but that's the way democracy works. So for me, I've been in the chair. I've understood the decisions that principals have to make. They have been tough decisions to make on the county board, but we've made those decisions. And I'm ready to take that forward onto the Oshkosh City Council. So if you want to learn a little bit more about me and what I stand for, my website's at jacobflom.com and Jacob for Oshkosh City Council on Facebook. So thank you very much for your time, and remember to vote on April 2nd.
Thank you. Tom?
Again, thanks to inviting me to this forum. It was quite informational, and I appreciate the opportunity. Pablo Picasso said, "The meaning of life is to find your gift. The purpose of life is to give it away." The Lord has blessed me with leadership skills, and I believe in servant leadership, prioritizing the needs of the people we serve, and I will be a leader who cares and a voice for all. Thank you.
Thank you. So this concludes the forum for Oshkosh City Council. On Tuesday, April 2nd, you may vote for 3 of the Oshkosh City Council candidates: Thomas Asuma, Jacob Flom, Chris Larson, DJ Nichols, and Christopher Ulrich. The polls are open from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. Everyone must show a voter ID with a photo on it. You may register when you go to vote on Election Day. Take a proof of residence with you. Go to www.myvote.wi.gov to find information on registration, ballot, acceptable photo IDs, and polling places. Go to vote411.org to learn more about the candidates. You may also consider voting early or absentee. Contact the city clerk for more information. On behalf of the League of Women Voters of Winnebago County, I want to thank everyone who participated tonight. Remember, our democracy depends on citizen involvement, so vote. That's all. Thank you.